There's a stakeholder in your business who doesn't want to work with procurement. They've gone direct to the supplier, they've signed something they shouldn't have, or they're about to. If you walk in waving the policy at them, you will lose them for good. And I've spent 25 years figuring out what works instead. I developed for myself a 5-step framework, which I call the T.E.A.C.H framework, and it's turned more procurement adversaries into allies than any compliance memo or risk log that I've ever written. I'm Tom Mills, the procurement protagonist. 25 years in procurement. I've got 24,000 newsletter subscribers. Let's get into it. So this is the problem. I've seen so many procurement professionals go wrong here. Policy is never an incentive to comply. People, in its human nature, they respond to positive stimulus, not threats. What you do by threatening people with policy or being restrictive is you actually back them into a corner. You make them want to work with you even less. Of course, the procurement policy is a guardrail. It's there to present to the business what the guidelines are, but it's not a weapon. Lead with compliance and you will lose the relationship. And remember, all of procurement, all good procurement requires good, strong, collaborative working relationships, and the internal relationships are the ones where you need to gain the most momentum so that you've got ultimate leverage when it comes to negotiating with the suppliers. My T.E.A.C.H framework was something that I developed for myself because I realized that the negative implications of these difficult conversations and the non-compliance was beginning to impact my mental health. It was causing me anxiety, and I knew that I needed some kind of framework that I could cling to which would help me deliver a change and help me to do so in a measured way. So here's my formula. T means talk to the person. So you're not telling them about the policy, you're actually talking to the policy. And this is not an email conversation. You're going to pick up the phone, or even better, you're going to get in the room with them. Open with curiosity, not compliance. So a good question to ask might be, what's going on in your world right now? What are your key pressure points? You are showing an interest in what's important to them. You're not leading with procurement policy. You're not presenting yourself as the procurement technocrat. You are there to help them. Ask about their role, maybe their priorities, their deadlines. Ask what their past experience of procurement has been like. And this is a really good question to ask, actually, because not only does it help increase your self-awareness, it also helps improve your understanding of where things may have gone wrong in the past. Listen for the frustrations and then reflect them back honestly. Be open-minded to that, reflect them back, mirror them where you've got common ground. And the goal of this step is to understand you're not correcting them yet. Once you've had that conversation, and that could be a 15-30 minute conversation, you're moving on to the E. The E is evaluate where you can add value. So this is your route in. You're getting in the room, you're not running the full process on day one, you're establishing what you can now take off their plate. So maybe they've come to you too late for you to be able to run a full process. Contract work and the conduit to legal, commercial analysis and the conduit to finance, negotiation support, supplier onboarding and direct liaison, maybe it's reference and credit checks. Maybe there are things that you can do to help. And here's a great way to frame it. Here's how I help you succeed. So notice the importance and the difference in the language here. Rather than going in to say you're preventing them or they should have done this, here's how I help you succeed. Not here's what you must comply with. And the perception shift starts here. It's all about the language. It's the long game. You need to win them around first. It may be that in this instance you haven't got ultimate leverage and you can't support them in the full way procurement can, but I will come on to that later in the framework. You're winning them around and you're going to roll out the process later. A is for adapt your style and not your principles. So adapt how you show up, but don't water down what you stand for. And here's the real balance, and this is where the best procurement professionals absolutely get this right. They're very firm on the principles, they're hard on the principles, but not on the person. So I'm not saying that you have to suddenly be subservient and bow down to the stakeholder, but remember, the point of this framework, the point of this situation is to develop a partnership approach. Learn their communication style. Is it calls or emails? Do they prefer short or detailed? And where there's a real risk of breach, so where you've now spoken to the stakeholder and you've understood the situation and you think, oh my goodness, this is a real risk, name it clearly. Explain why this should matter to them, not just to procurement. Maybe it's something along the lines of an investment appraisal won't get signed off without a competitive selection. That's far more compelling to them than policy says no, or the policy says you can't do this. You have to make them understand what's in it for them. And pair every no with a here's what we can do. Notice again, it's a reframe of the language. So you're moving from the negative into the positive. You're not restricting, you're looking at the art of the possible. And I think it was Thomas Jefferson who said the famous quote, in matters of style, swim with the current. In matter of principles, stand like a rock. You are adapting your style. You're not changing your principles. By the way, quick call out before I go on to the C of the T.E.A.C.H framework. The moment you sign up to Procure Bytes, you get my weekly insights and instant access to 80 or more high resolution PDF cheat sheets free of charge, and including many frameworks I've got on stakeholder management and influencing, many quotes about what to say, many examples of how to position things effectively with stakeholders. The link is in the description. Feel free to download that. Moving on to C, create long-term objectives. You're looking to create common long-term objectives. So zoom out from the immediate issues. The short-term tension shrinks when you find the bigger shared picture. So maybe you could ask them, what could look like if we worked properly together over the next year? There's more common ground in the long-term vision than people expect. Influencing is not just negotiating, needs a higher level of emotional intelligence, that's EQ, than perhaps a price negotiation does. And this is Chris Voss territory. He talks a lot about this, having a vision. And it's about creating tactical empathy, mirroring and calibrated questions. The relationship then moves from transactional to strategic. And it's so important to think about that, not just in your negotiation style, but in how you deal with your stakeholders. What is the vision? Create that vision and make them see the value of working with you long term. And that moves neatly on to H, which is help them see the opportunity. Close every single interaction with your stakeholder with what's possible, not what they can't do. So you're not telling them next time you can't do this, or I can't believe you've just brought them in and you're not going to be able to do that. It's not about restriction. You're helping them to visualize. So perhaps you're going to help them realize that they can have better, smoother supplier relationships. Perhaps you can help them to deliver their really stretching budget goals. You're going to deliver them less risk. You're going to bring time back for their team. Just think about the things that are important to them and ask them to imagine if procurement had been involved at the very start of the next project, not the end. Just imagine the value that could then be delivered. And here's where I do advocate for following up with a short email summarizing the value you brought. So at the end of the interaction, you may not feel that you've delivered your best procurement performance because you've been brought in too late, the stakeholder hasn't involved you at the right time, but there will still be some value you've added. You should still summarize that because that is reiterating the value that they have gained. And it makes them think bigger picture. Wow, if we'd have involved procurement earlier, just imagine what more we could have done. This is like your internal sales pitch. And selling your value in this way isn't compromising your principles. It's just making it impossible to ignore. And that's what you want procurement to be positioned as internally. Impossible to ignore, but for all the good reasons, because people can't ignore the value that you bring. People realize and they talk about you in rooms that you're not in. And this is the framework that I've used for multiple years. In fact, over a decade, I've coached many of my students. I've taught teams this framework, and each of them come back to me to say this T.E.A.C.H framework has helped them through many difficult scenarios. And it takes years to build bridges with stakeholders and minutes to blow them up. So T.E.A.C.H, this framework, is how I've stopped blowing them up. And remember, sign up to Procure Bytes and you get instant access to all of my weekly insights. I write about stakeholder relationships, stakeholder management every single week, and you'll get all of my free cheat sheets to help guide you through these processes, including ones on stakeholder management. The link is in the description. I'll see you in the next one.